juvenilization is a process by which the spiritual traits of adolescents, of immature people, become accepted for people of all ages. And I argued in my first book, The Juvenilization of American Christianity, that this has in fact happened in the American church, and that one of the mechanisms by which it happened was youth ministries. Youth ministries tried to appeal to teenagers, rightly so, but then in the process created immature versions of the faith that, while they might have been appropriate for teenagers, ended up being accepted and adopted and even celebrated by Christians of all ages. And I must insist that I'm not blaming youth ministries for everything that's wrong with the church today. In fact, it wouldn't have gone as badly as it did if it weren't for a bigger thing going on in American society, which was adulthood, and the journey to adulthood were themselves changing. So over the same period that youth ministry really came to be what we know today, dominant in many churches as a mode of caring for the young, in those same years, what it meant to be an adult, and certainly the process of becoming fully adult, changed dramatically. The process lengthened, and there was less and less consensus about what it meant to be an adult and whether an adult really needed to care for other people or just needed to develop themselves and be focused on themselves. Much like, frankly, there's a lot of parallels between the new immature adulthood and what used to be called adolescent narcissism by the psychologists. So when you're 14, a certain amount of narcissism is appropriate to your identity development. When you're 45, you should know who you are by then. But that became less and less the case. And so this is the situation we face. We face a situation in which people maybe learn to follow Jesus in an adolescent way as a teenager, very appropriately in their youth ministry, but then they never grow out of that as they become an adult in the church. And so I try to argue in chapter 1 of my second book, From Here to Maturity, that both the process and the destination of adulthood have changed. And I think actually, though I don't prove it in the book, I suspect that the process of growing up is somewhat broken in American society, that we're not good at helping people mature humanly or spiritually. And so therefore the church finds itself in a tough spot. We've got to help people mature who are living and swimming in a culture that doesn't value many of the traits that the Bible values in a mature adult. Well, one of the factors is consumerism, and I'm not the only one who's noted this. People who write about consumerism have noticed that some of the traits of the ideal consumer, that is someone who's willing to spend money to establish a sense of identity, are also traits that are not very mature and that sound a little bit like an adolescent working out their identity. And so one of the consumer society that says, you know, which clothing am I going to buy? Which one is me? You know, the people who manufacture clothing very much want you to ask that question. Who am I? And I'm going to define myself by which clothing I buy and wear. And so this contributes to a situation in which people are in flux in their identities. They're not sure who they are. They're letting products define who they are. That's one factor. Another factor is just changes in the economy that have lengthened the process to becoming a fully independent adult. You know, there's lots of stuff in the press about how people move back home after college and so on. And this isn't just because people are immature and can't go out. It's economically driven in terms of finding jobs that can support a middle-class life is more difficult. And in fact, the studies show that the biggest expenses of education, healthcare, childcare, housing have all risen. The prices tags of those things have all risen faster than middle-class wages. The kind of jobs you can get with a university education, those wages have not gone up as fast as your fixed costs. And so therefore, it's harder for people to become a fully independent adult. Also, delaying marriage, which has happened for many reasons, means that people are not establishing married households as young, and therefore one of the life transitions that used to push people to think, oh, maybe I'm an adult now, is happening later. So marriage is delayed, economic independence is delayed, but also there's kind of a new culture surrounding the 20s that says, I'm not sure I want to grow up. This is my time to have fun. I want to travel. I want to experience new things. I want to pursue my dreams. And so settling down into marriage and parenthood or whatever adulthood might mean seems less attractive. But then also for people who have made those transitions, their lives also aren't as stable as adult lives used to be. If you just think about, for example, the number of adults who will not be married to the same person for most of their adult lives through divorce or whatever the circumstance, that means that those people, after those situations happen to them, have to, in a sense, reinvent themselves and figure out who they are. The whole economic instability, the number of people having to switch jobs frequently. So all of this creates a situation in which people's identities are much more in flux, where there aren't as many things fixed in their lives. And so in a way, it becomes adaptive to say, well, I'm not going to get too committed to anything because I might have to just pull up roots and go to another town next year. So I don't really want to get too committed. I don't really want to get connected deeply in relationships with others that might actually form me and shape me, because I need to be nimble. I need to be ready to change at a moment's notice because of the demands of my job or whatever.